As the cold weather rolled in and ended the gardening season for the year, I thought I would show you a week's worth of dinners that I cook as a plant-forward but not 100% plant-based registered dietitian. Some of these meals are quick and easy, while others are a little bit more involved, but each of them has a combination of protein, fiber-rich carbohydrates, healthy fats, and vegetables to make a balanced meal. So the first dinner I made this week was a high-protein pesto pasta bake. And one thing I love about this recipe is how versatile it is depending on the season. I'm a huge fan of utilizing seasonal produce, whether that's in my own garden or buying from the local farmer's market or the grocery store. And this week I used a combination of mushrooms, red onion, and asparagus. And we think of asparagus as being a spring vegetable, but there's actually a second crop in mid-fall that can be available depending on where you live. So when I saw this asparagus at my local store, I definitely had to jump on it because I do love asparagus, and so does my husband. I chose to use a high-protein pasta to up the protein content of this dish, but you could also use a whole wheat pasta if you prefer it, but I used a chickpea pasta. A lentil pasta would also have a higher protein content. We'll also add some chopped mozzarella later, which has protein, and you can toss in a can of white beans into the mix as well for more plant-based protein, even though I didn't do that this time. I had some of the last tomatoes from the garden. Even though it's the last week of October, they're still pretty good, so I decided to toss them in to make it more of a caprese pesto pasta bake, since we're having the basil pesto, the mozzarella, and now these fresh tomatoes will complete that flavor profile. And the last step is to mix all of these ingredients with a homemade basil pesto that I made over the summer when I had just a ton of basil on hand. And this one is a basil walnut pesto, so extra healthy fats from those walnuts, which have omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory and healthy for the heart. And this meal makes tons of leftovers, perfect for lunches, either if you work from home or to toss in a Tupperware and bring to the office. But it's all in one. You've got your healthy carbs, your protein, your vegetables, and healthy fats all ready to go. So this next dish is a broiled salmon with miso pesto ramen noodles and seared bok choy. And this is a sort of combination that I've made forever, probably for the last 5 to 6 years. It's a favorite of me and my husband's, and it's one of our dishes this week that does include animal products, in this case salmon. We do follow a predominantly plant-based diet, so mostly plants, but not exclusively so. And this kind of comes from my background as a longevity researcher. So before I was a dietitian, I worked as a clinical researcher where we studied the impact of food on longevity and heart health. And through that work, I really came to be a believer in the power of eating mostly plants. I mean, there's so much good about it. More fiber, less saturated fat, which reduces risk of heart disease, lower calorie density overall, which helps to maintain a healthy weight. But from a health standpoint, you don't actually need to be 100% plant-based to reap the health benefits of a plant-based diet. And I've actually come to believe that a sort of targeted supplementation with animal products, like salmon, for example, it's a really dense source of protein. It contains healthy fats, omega-3 fatty acids, and these kinds of foods actually can be healthy as long as we're not over-relying on the types of animal products that might contribute to chronic disease. right, so this next meal was really quick because it was Halloween night and it was my daughter's first Halloween and she's only 7 months old, so of course we had to get her into a cute costume. You can see I'm also kind of dressed up, or at least partially dressed up so far. This was a spinach lasagna, so I'd made a lot of freezer meals before my postpartum period just to have some quick and easy meals on hand, which was about 7 months ago. We have a deep freezer, so this lasagna was still good, but we are getting to the end of our freezer meals. But tonight was a great night for this. We just popped it in the oven and made a quick side salad, and we could still have a nourishing meal while focusing on having fun with our daughter and doing a little bit of baby trick-or-treating and, of course, all of the cute photos. Sorry, I didn't film any of her costume. It was really cute. She was a bumblebee and I was a pot of honey, and my husband was a beekeeper because my mom is a beekeeper and we just borrowed one of her bee suits for him. And when we have a dish that might feel a little bit heavier like lasagna, we always like to put a vegetable side next to it, try to make half the plate veggies on most nights, and so this side salad was perfect. Just dish up a little bit of lasagna, which is a vegetarian lasagna, add the side salad, and we're in business for a delicious meal. The next day was our first snow of the season, which came a lot sooner than it did last year. Kind of caught me off guard, so I didn't quite get all the tomatoes from the garden, but it put me in the mood for a very cozy meal for that night. My husband was traveling this night, so I made this for myself, but I decided to try a new recipe, which was a cauliflower curry with tofu. So this recipe wasn't one of my originals, but I'll definitely link that recipe below, and I'll include the links to all the recipes that I can find and also the ones that I've made up myself. I'll include a recipe for that in the description. So go ahead and take a look below if you want to try any of these recipes at home. So this recipe calls for previously frozen tofu, so I actually did pop this in the freezer and then defrost it. And the difference between regular tofu and previously frozen tofu is that with previously frozen, it's a little bit more porous and spongy, and some people really don't prefer that texture. I've made dishes before that I don't like it in, but in the recipe, it says that the texture is a little bit more meaty and holds up better in the curry, and I actually agree with this. After having done it, I really enjoyed the texture of the previously frozen tofu, so you can do it either way, but if you have the time, freezing it a little bit ahead of time can be a great addition to the texture.